Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to do an updated list of the top 10 world boss breakers. It's been some time, and holy crap, if you go back and watch that video, please don't, but if you do, you will see an embarrassing list of characters who are now mostly useless in Marvel Future Fight. How times change. So we're going to be looking at the top 10 best characters to tackle the 5 world boss ultimates. I'm also going to be leaving you guys with a couple of characters to watch out for possibly a future video 6 months or a year down the road when we finally get the last 5 world boss, or at least 4 more world boss ultimates. But for now, we're going to be focusing on characters that can tackle very high level stages of Proxima, Cull Obsidian, Corvus, Ebony, and Thanos, and also characters that can tackle multiple stages, because that's just as important, if not more important, than being able to do one stage really well. Being able to do 5 stages pretty well is extremely valuable because it offers so much roster flexibility. So let's get it started with number 10. We've got Captain America. Now, a few months ago, I would have put him number 1 or number 2 on the list, but he has fallen since then. And the primary reason why he's only at number 10 is because his tier 3 skill is not an iframe, it doesn't have iframe ignore, and the charge up means that it often gets interrupted. Now, he's basically unusable against Cull Obsidian and Ebony Moss. You really only have Proxima, Corvus, and Thanos to use him on, and even then he does extremely strong damage. You gotta respect the damage and the survivability, but the difficulty of getting his heroic charge off successfully is what puts him at number 10 on this list and not any higher. At number 9 is a character who can tackle Ebony Maw sometimes, Thor. Thor has the added value that some other characters don't have. Not only is he a universal type, so he doesn't have a damage reduction except against Corvus because of Corvus's stage mechanic, but he also has mixed damage. Now, I know it says lightning damage, and I know it says energy damage of lightning, right there, lightning damage, 106% of energy damage, of energy attack, but he still has some physical damage in some of his skills, like 1, I believe also 4, 2, and 5 when he comes down from his kind of lightning skyward attack. And so because of that, he can do, although not the highest stages, he can do Cull Obsidian, he can do Proxima, he can do Corvus, he can do Ebony, and he can do Thanos. Now, he's not going to push as high on any of these stages as pretty much any other character on this list, which is why he's lower down, but he's higher than Captain America because he can do 4 or 5 stages out of 5, whereas Cap can only do a maximum of 3 out of 5. Coming in at number 8, and he may be a lot closer in the future if he gets a uniform or a tier 3, Cable's half kind of sort of clone brother, Stryfe. What makes him so powerful, I mean, 50% damage reduction just casually, which is super dope, but he just has extremely flexible skills to proc. So you proc by canceling 4 and 2 into 3, but the beautiful thing about his third skill is that you can move around while you're attacking. You're not stationary. So he's got that charge mechanic skill, or that kind of continuous beam mechanic, but it's movable, which makes him infinitely better and has much more survivability than even his brother Cable, despite the fact that he has lower HP, lower defense, and lower energy attack because he doesn't have a uniform yet. And because of his extremely high damage, his extremely high damage reduction, and the flexibility of his movement skill, it makes him a very good world boss killer, and he can do, Thanos very well. He can do Cull Obsidian, he can do Corvus. He really just struggles against Proxima and Ebony. Coming in just above him at number 7, we have his brother Cable. And so you can see there, I'm rocking almost 5,000 more energy attack from Cable compared to Stryfe. That is really what makes Cable better, and although his skill rotation is a little bit clunkier, it's a little bit harder to use because you have to time the positioning perfectly. You can't stand in an attack and take the damage, or Cable will probably die. But his 5th skill, Plasma Shower, undeniably strong damage, 5 seconds of invincibility. He's got a self-heal plus an additional buff, so he can survive in a different way than Stryfe does because he doesn't have damage reduction, but he has extremely high damage, and he has extremely good survivability with iframes, invincibility, guard hit, and a continuous heal, which is basically 20% every 7.5 seconds, which is nothing to cough at. He can also do Cull Obsidian, Corvus, Thanos, pretty well, and for very low stages of Proxima, he can put a dent in her just because his damage is so incredibly high. Coming in at number 6, we have the newly minted Tier 3 Luna Snow, and with further testing, I may eventually want to put her higher on this list, possibly number 5, but for now, I think it's comfortable to say top 6 is very respectable for a character who has the lowest Tier 3 stat boost of any character, if you watched yesterday's video. She just has extremely high damage. She has good survivability now with the changes to her skills. She has the Entice, or the kind of charm effect for 5 seconds. She's got double heals. She's also got her Tier 3 skill, which deals great damage and continuously heals her. So she's just very good, and because of the elemental damage, she can tackle Ebony, which means that as both a speed type and an energy type and an elemental type, she is one of the very few characters that can do Corvus, Ebony Maw, and Call Obsidian successfully, and she can also slide and do some Thanos on the side if you want to slap that big purple grape, you know, for a little bit of extra cold damage. Moving into the top 5, we have another speed character, and man, the speed renaissance has been beautiful, seeing so many super powerful speed characters just dominate the tops of most of my lists, and possibly other people's lists. But yeah, moving on, number 5, Quicksilver. The thing that makes Quicksilver so good against World Boss Ultimates is the iframes. Of course, he has extremely high damage. Of course, he has great survivability because of the guaranteed dodge and because of the heal. But holy crap, with so many iframe skills, with the fact that you can chain 5 iframe, cancel into 4 iframe, cancel into 3 iframe, he's basically an iframe 90% of the battle. And so if you can time things well and you don't get caught out of iframe, it's extremely difficult to actually take damage. And because he's an iframe, if the world boss doesn't have a target, the world boss just stands there. So there are little gaps here and there that you'll notice, and you'll get the rhythm into how to best take advantage of those gaps in order to counter when the boss tries to move. But you will find that it's very satisfying to have Corvus just stand there for 5 or 6 seconds, not being mind controlled, because Quicksilver's in one of his long iframes, and just wait until he gets a Tier 3. Oh boy. Coming in at number 4, we have the other newly minted Tier 3, Sharon Rogers. And Sharon Rogers just does insane damage. Her Tier 3 skill is completely bonkers. She can melt Call Obsidian, she can do Corvus, she can do Thanos. Now, she can't do Ebony or Proxima, but she can push extremely high stages, 40 plus Call Obsidian, 50 plus Corvus, and I imagine at least 35 to 40 on Thanos, which is extremely rare. And I mean, I don't know if any other character will be able to push as high of a stage on Thanos. That is my speculation, but once I get that high, I'll show you, and you guys can kind of call me out on my mistake, or if I'm right, you can tell me I was right all along. So yeah, that's kind of why she's at number 4. Bonkers damage, great survivability with the damage reduction, and the Tier 3 bubble that she gives for additional reduction and immunity. Moving into the top 3. Now, Scarlet Witch I'm putting here at number 3. Some people may argue that she deserves to be number 2 or number 1 because she is the undisputed heavyweight champion of the striking world. Yeah, I agree. She is the best striker in the game because of Power of Chaos, because of the 10 seconds of mind control that she applies to basically every other character on this list to make them better. However, as a standalone world boss character and defeater, she doesn't have as much power to push high stages as the characters ahead of her, the characters that are number 1 and number 2. She can really only do Corvus, Ebony Maw, and Call Obsidian. She starts to struggle with higher levels of Call Obsidian because he has extremely high crowd control reduction time, so her 10 seconds of mind control is not 10 seconds by the end of the fight. It's like 4 or 3 seconds, so she does lose value herself there. And she also struggles against Thanos. Although she can do Thanos, up to stage 20 because of her damage, she does struggle because after 11 bars in the middle of the fight, he gets debuff immunity, and then her mind control no longer works. And honestly, once you take away Scarlet Witch's mind control, she's kind of exposed. Not a bad character, not saying that. Still has excellent damage, still has viable iframes on 5 and 1, but she does start to look a little bit more normal in terms of being the undisputed dominant force that we know her to be if those 10 seconds of damage reduction or 10 seconds of mind control are also there. Side note, she can also do Proxima, although lower stages, because of that mind control, just basically locking down Proxima for the entire fight, whether you're doing stage 1 or stage 50. It's just a matter of how much damage you can do in those 5 minutes. Coming into the top 2, it's a hotly contested fight between a speed and blast type heavyweight. Both of them are missing uniforms. One of them's tier 3, and one of them is paywall. Here we go. At number 2, we have Mr. Deadpool. And Deadpool is arguably the best, but I'm going to put him at number 2 almost exclusively because of the all-defense mechanic. We discovered this mechanic as a world boss killer basically when Deadpool came out, along with Phantom X, and that 100% minus to all defense, in addition to the other 45% that he has that can stack, makes him an absolute, I don't even know what's a god against world bosses. You can see him melting multiple bars in one rotation on level 50 Corvus, level 50 Proxima. Damage that you didn't think was possible is possible if you time your procs correctly after applying enough all defense down. He absolutely dominates Proxima and Corvus, undisputed #1 character for both of those fights. And he's very good against Thanos, and he's also a requirement for Thanos stage 30. So all of those things basically mean that you're going to need to develop Deadpool, and you're also not going to be disappointed when you develop him. But he is defeated by one character, and hopefully you've guessed who it is by now. If you haven't, and you haven't been watching my videos, shame on you, man, or girl, or whoever. It's Gambit. Gambit is my #1 world boss killer. And no, I'm not being paid by Netmarble to say this, although I wish I was, like 40% of the time. Yeah, Gambit is #1 for 2 reasons. The first reason is all defense down. He has a 60% stackable all defense on his 5th skill. This is more important and more powerful than Deadpool's because it's 60%, which is higher than his 45% on his 3rd skill. It's an iframe skill, so it's more easy to apply, whereas Deadpool's 3rd skill can be interrupted. It's also a very high damage skill, so it synergizes with itself. As you lower the defense, you do more and more damage. It's also got 10 seconds of all defense down, which means you can always have it on as long as the boss doesn't go into any animations. It's also got a buff. It's also got increase effect from chain hit damage, which he has on his tier 2 passive, in addition to his CTP of energy if you give him one. And because it has so many hits, it's got over 100 hits on the skill, there's just so much synergy to just do more and more and more damage. And the second thing is he can do all 5 world bosses. Yeah, that is why Gambit is #1. He can do stage 40 and up for Proxima, Cull Obsidian, Corvus, and Ebony Maw. I haven't been able to test him beyond stage 28 or 27 for Thanos, but he can do that stage. So he is able to push among the highest stages, top 100 essentially. You can get top 100 scores on this page using Gambit and using the right team up on all 5 world boss ultimates. No other character in the game can say that, and for that reason, and for the fact that he doesn't even have a uniform yet, so his potential is just mind-boggling if he ever got a uniform that made him better offensively. The defenses it's not hard to argue that his defenses are extremely low. I know that. But he can survive. I can do it. I can clear stage 40 Proxima, Cull Obsidian, Corvus. I still have to try Ebony Maw, but he can definitely do it. So his survivability is not in question as far as being able to do it. You just have to practice and get better at it. But he's one of the most fun characters in the game to play as because of the challenge, and his damage and his flexibility are just undeniable. So for that reason, yeah, Gambit, you better not sleep on him, man, because he's a monster. As far as honorable mentions go, I want to talk about 3 characters that I think could be on this list in the next 6 months to a year, and I'll give you reasons why. The first character that I suggest you keep an eye on, not necessarily build them up, but just keep an eye on them, is Phantom X. He has a few things that make him situated to potentially be very good against world bosses. He's a speed type, so he can do Corvus a bit more easily. He has a 65% increased damage to mutants, so when Cable and Apocalypse get their world boss ultimates, he might be very, very good against them, especially Cable, because he has the type advantage against blast types. Additionally, on his 5th skill, he has a 5% all defense that stacks up to 25% with a 10-second cooldown. If he got a uniform that doubled that 25 to minus 50 and it got more hits, it would be very similar to Gambit's 5th skill. And we just finished talking about how extremely savage that 5th skill is. So look out for Phantomex. The other ones that I want to point out as possibly strong characters for future videos, Nova, again, if he gets a uniform, could be top 5 world boss characters. He's got so many different weapons that make him powerful, but especially his 2nd skill, Ignore Iframe, all defense down up to 30% for 5 seconds, penetration, dodge, ignore dodge, invincibility. He's just got so many weapons that he just needs a bit of a bump offensively, and he needs just a bit more all defense down, and he could definitely be kind of jockeying for position. Finally, the last one to mention, Captain Marvel. I mean, yeah, her movie's coming out. Everyone in the game wants her to be super OP. I kind of expect her to be super OP, and I think they're going to want to make her a character that can dominate world bosses. Additionally, it may not be a stretch to imagine that her uniform or her tier 3 or her reworked tier 2 passive gives her additional damage against aliens, because she spends so much time, albeit kind of being an alien, she spends so much time fighting the Skrulls and fighting other aliens, and so I could see that as a buff for her. We've already seen buffs against human types, against mutant types, against machine types, which are all one of the kind of ally sides that characters have. You know, you have Magneto, you have Phantomex that we've talked about, but we don't have one for aliens, and guess what? All of the Black Order are typed as aliens, so that's why I think you should keep an eye out on Captain Marvel or any character that gets a buff against alien types in the future. So let me know what you think of the top 10 list. Subscribe if you enjoy the content and you want to support me. And of course, if you like what you see, I hope to see you again tomorrow. Take care.